It's really great to be able to at least see some faces tonight, even though we can't meet in person. So I'm going to go ahead and start with just a few announcements with you all. I just want to welcome you tonight to our virtual support group meeting. And just thank you all for taking time out to be with us. I think this information will be really helpful tonight for a lot of you. So I want to first just thank all of you that supported our Georgia Race for Autism this year. And the resources and going to run, you helped us raise $40 to help support our camps and clubs programs. And a little different this year, but we were happy to be able to raise some funds, even though we weren't able to have our big face-to-face event. We'll be hopeful that next year we can do that again. We are hosting Saturday respite day camps. And if you need a break, or your child needs some social activities, we are taking ages 4 up through adult. It's at New Directions in Swanee, and you can register for 2 weeks in November, 2 weeks in December right now. We will probably continue that January, February, March at least. So you have some sort of break to look forward to, and really important information tonight to help you know how to use respite funding and family support funding. If you don't have access to that, it's a great way to pay for these programs. We're also going to be doing a 3-day Thanksgiving break camp, which will be at the Net Church on Pleasant Hill Road, and it will be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of that week, 9:30 to 3:30. And that will give you a little break during that week, and we'll have a lot of great fun activities. Our programs are running just kind of like a camp day. So they're lots of fun for the kids, and we're doing all the safety protocols for health and safety for COVID. And we've been doing this since September, and it's gone very well. We're only taking a smaller number, so definitely go to our website and get your spot. I'll put the website in the chat box once we finish with the announcement. We won't be able to have our holiday party, which is, I know, one of our big highlights of the year, to do our holiday party at the church the 1st of December. We'll just be having a regular virtual meeting next month on December 3rd. And then I just really want to thank Bobby Dodd Institute, In Community, and Social Skills Today for being with us tonight to share their time and their expertise about family support and respite funding, and also about the programs that you can access right now to use those funds for. I know a lot of people don't know how to use your funds if you have them, because some of the programs aren't running, but we will let you know what our programs are. And I know that Jeffrey and Latarsha may be able to share programs they know as well. And we will allow some time at the end for questions. So if you have questions, you think about them during the presentation, just put them in the chat box. If you will just stay muted during the presentations, we'll have 15 minutes at the end just for questions, and we'll unmute you. You can unmute yourself and be able to ask your questions of whoever you need, and we'll all try to answer those as best we can. So first of all, I'm going to introduce Jeffrey Easley with Bobby Dodd Institute, and he's going to be talking a little bit about what they do at Bobby Dodd and about family support funding, how you apply, what you use the funds for, and we'll let you go for it, Jeffrey.
All right, well, good evening, everybody. Can you guys hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Well, good. I hope that you guys had a great day today, and just want to say thank you so much for allowing me to come and talk a little bit about the Bobby Dodd Institute and one of the programs that we offer. So I'm just going to begin just by sharing my screen, just a little PowerPoint presentation that I'm going to walk through, and then we'll go from there. Are you guys able to see my screen? Great. So yeah, so the Bobby Dodd Institute, illuminating the possibilities in abilities, and our mission and our vision is to empower people with differing abilities to maximize their potential by securing economic self-sufficiency, independence, and inclusion within the communities. And you know, we see, or our vision is that Bobby Dodd Institute, we envision a world where individuals with disabilities have the opportunity to learn. See if I can move this thing this ribbon. To learn, to work, to be independent, and to have dignity. And so that's our mission and our vision. That's what we believe that we are doing at Bobby Dodd. And we have, a few programs at Bobby Dodd, but the one that I wanted to talk about was traditional family support. And we call it our self-driven program because it really is self-directed. We also have an intensive family support program where participants actually receive a case manager, who's reaching out to them on a weekly basis. And you guys know that the budget cuts has greatly limited our ability to provide services in our intensive family support program, but there's still funding available for our traditional family support program. And so I want to talk about that this evening. Claire, how much time do I have?
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. You have until 7:15.
Oh, that's a lot of time. Okay.
So you have a lot of time, and I'll give you a little reminder when you're getting near your end of your time.
Great. Okay. So the family support program is a non-entitlement program which brokers disability-specific services based on the unique needs of individuals and their families. We provide our services with the belief that families belong together and individuals are best served in a community setting. Our goal is to maintain a cohesive family unit while helping individuals live at home in the community. These supports meet everyday needs that are often critical in avoiding family crises. And so the biggest thing is that, our traditional family support program is a service. It's a brokerage service. And so we'll learn and we'll talk more about that as we go along. But and so let's talk about eligibility. Am I eligible? Who's eligible for these services? In DBHDD, when they talk about eligibility, we talk about individuals age 3 and up, who have a diagnosed intellectual and or developmental disability, experience prior to the age of 22 and supported with medical documentation may be eligible for family support services. And you guys probably already know about the requirements and eligibility, and that kind of thing. But so the reason I wanted to show you this is because before you can receive services or as you go through the application phase through the Bobby Dodd Institute, we're also going to send it off to once you go through the application, it goes to DBHDD, and DBHDD has to approve you for services. They'll get back with us, letting us know that the participant has been approved for services, and then that will be the signal for us to be able to start providing services for our participants. And so the services that we provide, first of all, the annual budget in our traditional family support program is $3,000 per participant. And that's an annual, like I said, it's an annual budget. It goes from July 1st to June 30th of every year. And also another service that we provide is that there's a case manager who works the cases in traditional family support, but not on a weekly basis, but not on a monthly basis, but just one quarterly contact. We just call it a touch point, where Miss Alita Sims, she reaches out to our participants, just to see how they're doing. She keeps track of their spending and how much money they've spent for a particular vendor. She's responsible for making sure that the plans are renewed on an annual basis. Any kind of vendor questions, she can handle those. Well, we both actually can. But Alita Sims would be the case manager that works the traditional family support program at Bobby Dodd. Information and referrals. Again, that's something that we do. If when you're admitted into the program, we provide information, we provide referrals. When we get to our vendor conversation in the minutes, we do have a extensive preferred vendor list that we use at Bobby Dodd. And once a person is admitted into the program, they're welcome to take a look at the preferred vendor database or resource list that we have. And if you decide to use one of those vendors, at least they won't have to go through the preferred vendor application process again. They're already a preferred vendor. But of course, you can also use your own vendor as well. And we'll talk about a little bit about that in a minute. Advocacy to obtain needed services or benefits, assistance in locating and acquiring services such as, respite services, There's community access. And when we say community access, we're talking about things like community integration. There may, a gym membership, karate lessons, music lessons, swimming lessons, those kind of things are considered to be community access. And I think we actually have a goods and services category in traditional family support that says community integration. And so you might have a family member who, they need that social integration. They need that outlet, that social outlet to get out into the community. And maybe for them, it's a gym membership. We have a relationship with LA Fitness, where our participants, we pay, the program pays for their gym membership, or a participant or individual. They may just want, swim lessons or karate lessons or music lessons. And so the community access or community integration would cover that. We also provide community living supports. There may be times when a participant might need a CNA or, just that CLS person to, come into the home and, and spend time with the participant. So we also offer that support as well. Family education. This is one of my favorite here, because what it does is that it provides resources for, parents. Parents might need training in some area. And so we can, the program pays for that training for them to have to better equip them to provide services or to provide the supports, that their child might need. We also provide special medical equipment, diets, clothing, just personal, items that the participant might need. And I really like this one as well, because it also includes incontinence supplies as well. I think, when we get into talking about requirements and those things, I think that, as long as Medicaid is not paying for it, and as long as we have a documentation from the doctor, we can usually get those medical supplies, for the participants. So we already have a couple of vendors that we use, to get that. And there are other services and supports that are unique to traditional family support as well. One of our favorite services and supports that we use is, I don't know if you guys heard of Life Behavioral Counseling. Life Behavioral, we use them, and they provide, that the social interaction training, the behavioral interaction training for our participants, and and so that's a great service for participants as well. So these are just some of the services that we provide. When a participant is admitted into our program, they get access to just all of the services, that we provide. So I'm pretty excited about that. The areas that we serve, Region 3 is Clayton, DeKalb, Fulton, Gwinnett, and Rockdale. Those are the 5 areas that we serve. And so just keep that in mind, as you are maybe passing the word or thinking about, enrolling or applying for services. We can only serve counties that are in Region 3. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about our workforce program or Ticket to Work program later. And the Ticket to Work and workforce program can serve counties outside of Region 3. But in terms of traditional family support, we're limited to those 5 counties. And so how the process works. So a family support case manager will assist the individual and their families to identify the needs and interests when developing the individual service plan. And so what that means is that when an individual or participant or your child is admitted into our program, you guys know that we do, we do an assessment, and we also put together the individual service plan. And our individual service plans are, they are driven by the person-centered approach. What's important to you, what's important for you. And so we make sure that when we develop that plan, that we're not loading the plan with just activities, but we're having a conversation with the family, or we're having a conversation with the participant to really find out what's important to them and what's important for them. And based on that conversation, then we're able to recommend services that we provide. And so That seemed to work pretty well because it gives the individual, the participant, an opportunity to be a part of developing their plan. And so they get pretty excited about that, when they have an opportunity to actually be a part of, developing that plan. The case manager assists them in identifying appropriate services that meet those needs. And so our focus is on sharing community resources with the individual so, he or she can explore service options in that area that best suit their needs. And I think that's a great point to take note of as well, because what we want to do is make sure that as best we can, it doesn't happen all of the time, but as best we can, we want to make sure that the services we provide are within the participants' community. As much as we can, we want to make sure we find those services in their community. And of course, there are times when we can't, but for the most part, we try to do that. Okay, so BDI maintains a list of preferred vendors. These are registered vendors who provide a wide variety of services. Individuals and families should review our list of vendors to identify a match with the individual service needs. For example, included in our vendor list are summer camp programs, aquatic swim programs, art, music programs, and more. And so that's one of the things that participants and their families will receive once admitted into our program, is that they will receive that, like I was saying earlier, that database or that list of vendors that are already preferred vendors in our program. They've already been vetted. They've already been set up for the ACH process. And so all the vendor is doing is that the vendor is providing the service, and then they're uploading the invoice into our preferred vendor program, and we just basically just paying the invoice. So the parents or families, participants don't necessarily have to get involved with the invoice process. The vendor is actually uploading the invoice into our system. And so how do I become a vendor or independent contractor? And that's one thing that I need to mention as well, is that we distinguish between a vendor and an independent contractor. And so a vendor would be an organization with a 501c3 or maybe an LLC. A vendor would be an organization that provides services. An independent contractor would be, for example, a lot of times an independent contractor would be, the CLS person that goes into the home. And they would be that person that's operating as an independent contractor, still the same in terms of becoming a preferred vendor. The independent contractors have to submit a little bit more documentation, whereas a vendor would normally just submit their W-9, and we're asking for a voided check or a bank verification so that we won't have any issues with the ACH process. The independent contractor, we're asking for background checks. We're asking for first aid, CPR certifications. We're asking for a resume. Your driving history. Motor vehicle. I guess it's called a DMV report or something. But we're asking for a little bit more information from the independent contractor because they are operating independently. But so we're pretty proud of our preferred vendor program, because we can say that Bobby Dodd has a list of vendors that you can choose from, that we have already vetted. Now, Bobby Dodd, we don't endorse the vendors, but we provide them to our families and participants as a resource that they can use if they choose to. And as I was saying earlier, they don't necessarily have to choose one of our preferred vendors. A family or participant, they may already have an organization that they want to use to provide services, and that's cool. That's fine. They would just need to go through our preferred vendor process, and it's not a difficult process. We, once we get their contact information, we send them a link where they upload and go through the application process. Once they're approved and set up in ACH, we send them another email with a link where they can begin to upload invoices. And so it's not a long process at all. So, like I said, we're pretty excited about traditional family support. First of all, we're thankful that we still have, financial resources that we can extend to families. you guys know that it's been rough. It's been really rough, you know, at the state and the budget cuts and everything. You know, we've gone through a difficult time, especially with our intensive family support services. They totally changed the way DBHDD totally changed the way that we provide intensive family support services. And so, you know, we're moving more to a support coordination role as it relates to intensive family support services. So that's a huge change for us, but we are very thankful, you know, that we still have resources, financial resources to assist families with traditional family support. The other thing I wanted to talk about was the workforce resources. And so in our workforce resources program, we want to be able to, you know, help participants and individuals, you know, find a job. That's basically, you know, what it is. And so assisting people with disabilities in training, obtaining and maintaining work. The staff person that, you know, that manages our workforce resources program is Kimberly Monroe. Also, you know, you see the case managers there, Kara and Jessica and Lyndon and Miriam. You know, if you're thinking about, you know, working, you know, if your child, you know, you feel like, and they feel like they're at a place where they are ready to work, even if you don't use Bobby Dodd's workforce resources, one of the things that you want to do is make sure that you have an open case with GVRA. And so I would recommend that if you haven't done that, if working is in your future, and you feel like, man, I'm going to need some kind of, you know, support, then I would recommend that you go ahead and get that open case with GVRA. One of the things that we just started is something called Ticket to Work, and I sent the flyer over, and I'm thinking at some point you guys will get the flyer. But basically, Social Security's Ticket to Work program and work incentives can help you find a meaningful work. If you are 18 through 64 and receive Social Security disability benefits, you can take advantage of these free services. So the thing that you have to know is that if you receive SSI, then you have a ticket to work. You have a ticket to work. And so the thing that you have to do is get connected with GVRA, get set up with one of the GVRA counselors. I think that they're going through a little bit of turnover and turmoil at GVRA as well. But that's the route that you have to go. You have to get connected to a counselor and open case at GVRA, and they can tell you more information about your ticket to work. And once that is confirmed that you do have the ticket to work, then Bobby Dodd can be the referral agency that you use, and we can provide those services for you. And just our contact information here, Kendall Haggard, he's our intake and participant manager. And so if you have any questions at all about enrolling in our program, you can email Kendall at empowers@bobbydodd.org. Also, if you want to, go ahead and get started with the application process, then you just go to bobbydodd.org. The quick links at the bottom of the website, at the bottom of the homepage, you're going to look for family support. And then once the screen pops up, you'll see a tab that says apply now. And so so that will get you started with the application process. It'll tell you what you need, the documents that you need. I can tell you right now that one of the biggest documents that you're going to need to apply for services is going to be it's going to be the I can't think of it now. I lost it. The psychological report. You're going to need a psychological report. I think you guys probably know that, but that's or either an IEP, one of those documents. So you're going to need those. So if you're thinking about applying for our services, just keep that in mind. Again, my name is Jeffrey Easley, and you can, if you got any other questions, you can email me at jeffrey.easley@bobbydodd.org. jeffrey.easley@bobbydodd.org, and we'll be glad to help you. We'll be glad to get you plugged in to do whatever we can do to help you get plugged in. And just assist you as well. Questions? Are we going to wait on the questions?
We are going to wait, but thank you, Jeffrey. That was really thorough. I was just going to throw out a few things you might add. How long does the process usually take from the time you get your application in to when it's approved by the state and they can start using services?
Yeah, it usually takes about 60 days.
So that would help people to know. And then we've been hearing that people need to be using the funds if they have funds in this first quarter. So you might talk about that a little bit, about what that looks like, because we're hearing, oh, they need to have some invoices in by November 15th, or what's going to happen. Just kind of talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. I think historically what's been happening is that a lot of participants in our program, when the fiscal year begins July 1, they won't use any funds until about March of the following year, because the only thing they want is summer camp or something, some type of program in the summertime. And that's been okay in the past, but with the budget cuts and restraints that we're facing, we're having to reevaluate at 6 months. And those individuals who are not spending funds, we're going to communicate with them at 3 months. But at 6 months, if there's still no spending of funds, then you may lose services. And so it's important, that you are regularly spending money. I'm not saying every month, but there must be some consistency that shows that you are spending money on the funds. Thank you for bringing that up, Claire. Yeah,
I'm not sure all families are aware of that. Our families, we're trying to let them know that, some of our families have respite funds, and they also have family support funds, and they struggle with knowing what to use each one for. But you can use family support for respite services. You can use them for our Saturday program. We're calling it Saturday Respite Day Camp, because some people are considering that camp. Some people are seeing it as respite. So you can use either funding source for that. But if you have not used your family support, I recommend that you definitely use it for one of those things if you're using our programs, so that you can show that you're using it. And family support covers 100% of the cost of the programs, whereas respite funding is going to only be a percentage. It's an hourly rate that you have, so you will owe some out of pocket. So for some people, they kind of budget out, how much are we going to spend out of pocket? Because that $3,000, you're saving it all for camp. You could use it all up for overnight camps. Some programs may not be operating right now, so people may have their funds, but one of the programs they were planning to use it for is not available.
Absolutely.
So that's a challenge for some of our families. And I know that you're really creative about some of the things you can use the funds for. I know that there were some virtual programs that BDI was offering. I know Anna Mackey had shared at another meeting I was at, some of the virtual programs, and that you could use your funding to cover those costs of those virtual programs that had fees as well. Do you want to share? You want to share about any of the virtual programs you all are doing?
So we were using a lot of virtual programs, in the spring, especially since we just having to make accommodations for COVID, and so those virtual programs we were building as life skills training. And unfortunately, with the budget restraints for intensive family support, they will not allow us to provide life skills training anymore. And so I'm not saying we won't be doing any virtual training. I know we won't be doing virtual training in the traditional family support program because you can't submit an invoice for it. And so we were doing life skills training and virtual training in our intensive family support program. So I wouldn't hang everything on the virtual programs in traditional family support unless there's a vendor who is providing those services. And so that would be the only way that it would work.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. There is a question in the chat box about someone who says they're not using their family support funds currently because of COVID issues, and usually they would use it for community access, swimming, music, etc. So they're asking, what are some recommendations of what they could use it for right now?
Yeah, so if you can just email me, I can send you our preferred vendor data or the list that we use. It is pretty extensive, so hopefully that will help.
So after you finish with your time, Jeffrey, if you could type in the chat box your email address for people so they can have the spelling and all, so they can contact you directly, because those vendor lists are very helpful for families who may not be aware of some of the opportunities out there. So that would be really, really helpful. Okay, so we'll save any other questions until the end. And that was awesome. I encourage, if you have not applied for family support, I encourage you to do so, whatever ability level your child is. They need to be over age 3. I feel like that amount of money, there's so much you can do with it, and you have enough other expenses going on. So if you can tap into those funds, it's renewed each year as long as you use it. So that's a wonderful resource for families. I would say probably 80% of our Spectrum families are using family support funding or respite funding to pay for our programs.
Okay.
And I think with the budget cuts that we've had, we're so grateful that family support, even though it was cut, is still in place, because my fear was family support was going to be eliminated. And I thought, what is that going to do to our families? So this can be a lifeline to help you just keep hanging in there, managing the day-to-day by having some of these programs to access for your child. So I encourage everyone to apply if you have not. Even adults on the spectrum qualify. I have a hard time getting my adults on the spectrum with Asperger's, for example, to apply. They may never get a waiver in Georgia, but they can get family support funding. So it just opens up a lot of opportunities. The peers program you were alluding to, you know, life consulting's programs. Some of those programs are quite expensive, and to be able to have some funds to cover that, I think it's worth filling out the paperwork. I know that's a little overwhelming to some people to have to do the paperwork, but once you've done it one time, you got it done. You're in the system, and you can renew that funding each year. My worry is that that funding could be cut this year, this next fiscal year again. So if you find that family support funding is something that means a lot to you and your family, it's going to be a time for you to advocate, to be able to write a letter, send an email, call your legislators, and be able to say, this is why this funding is important to our family. That's one thing that BDI did an excellent job of this year, is helping families know how to do that, because sometimes you don't know, who do I contact? What do I write them? And I really appreciated that, because that was a great resource for families to know how to better advocate. And I know Anna and some of your team will be able to educate us again. This next session, legislative session, will start in January, and that funding is going to be something we have to continue to advocate for. So someone else in the chat box just put, where do you apply for that family support funding? So if you're in Region 3, you can go to that bobbydodd.org website, and at the bottom where Jeffrey said, you can click on the link for your application. Is that right, Jeffrey?
Click on, that's correct. Click on the family support link at the bottom, and it'll open up another page that will say apply now.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you to put that information in the chat box too, Jeffrey, for them, and so people will have that in writing. And thank you very much. So hang in there with us, because there may be more questions at the end. And now I'd love for LaTarsha Hardy with In Community to talk a little bit about respite funding. I know it's confusing sometimes to know the difference. What is respite? What is family support? Do I need both? Can I have both? And I think LaTarsha, oh my gosh, I don't know how long I've been working with her with In Community, but she is the best resource for families. Her and Jared Bertha are just a great team, and they provide a lot of great support for families, helping you navigate the respite system. So that will be your turn now, LaTarsha. Now, Paul, I'm going to answer your question real quick before LaTarsha starts, but if you're not in Region 3, you can email me. I'll put my email address in the chat box, and Mary and I can let you know in whatever area you live in, where you will contact someone for family support, because every region does have family support, just a different provider. All right, LaTarsha, take it away.
Well, hello, everyone. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, my name is LaTarsha Hardy. I am the respite manager for In Community Atlanta. And to give you a little insight of In Community, we are a nonprofit organization, an agency that was created to provide community-based services and support to people with disabilities. Our mission is basically dedicated to enrich the lives of many individuals with different diagnoses, to better help them enrich themselves in the community. We provide an umbrella of services. Some of the services that In Community does provide are day programs. We have 6 all over Metro Atlanta. We have residential group homes. We have over 143 group homes. Supported employment. We also provide family support, and what over my division is respite. And respite services is a temporary based services that we provide to caregivers, families, loved ones that are taking care of someone with a disability. We provide services in the home, and I mean in the client's home, as well as we have a group home that's listed in Conyers, Georgia, that we do a group setting, and we provide services with a educated provider, a contracted provider that we employ to provide services to individuals with disabilities. We're located in Atlanta area. We have 2 offices, but we're integrated with people of DD diagnosis as well as intellectual. So Jared is in here somewhere. He's my respite coordinator. He works with me hand in hand where we provide services. The easiest way to get services through us is through an application that we use to, see if a person is eligible. We're not by, when you don't get eligible from money. We utilize is hours and hours only. So a little bit different from family support. We kind of offer the same respite type services, but we don't provide money. We provide hours only. And it is not based off of income. The easiest way, if your child has a DD diagnosis and they live in one of the metro areas, then they qualify. Region 3 is our region if you have grant and aid services, but we do not service Clayton County. Our other county, besides the ones that Jeffrey explained, is Douglas County, which is kind of like in the middle from Cobb and Fulton, but we do provide services up in that area as well. Jared, would you like to come on and kind of explain how a person can get involved with respite?
Sure. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me. I'm Jared. I'm a respite coordinator here at In Community. And to get on board with a respite, the individual just needs to be 3 years old. As Tasha said, they need to be diagnosed with a developmental disability or an intellectual disability, and live in one of the qualifying counties: Cobb, Gwinnett, Fulton, Douglas, Newton, Rockdale, or DeKalb. Very similar with getting on board with BDI, you need to provide information that includes a psych eval or an IEP. We'll need a physical, we'll need just documentation like a social security card, a current picture, as well as an intake assessment that we complete with you once you return all the information to us. We then follow up with you, and then we go over just basic ADL needs, IADL needs, any behavioral issues that might be present, just to kind of get a picture of what the care needs might be to ensure that we're able to serve you and to link you with a proper provider. Feel free to reach out if you like an application. We typically mail them out. What's required and what you need to return to us is indicated in the application. It's pretty self-explanatory, but as I tell everybody, if you have any questions or concerns, feel free just to follow up with me, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
And also to piggyback off of that, our funds, to get qualified for respite, we don't go through the state. Our way of getting a person qualified is in-house. So the time frame is much lesser than 30 or more days. our process and turnaround to get someone qualified for respite can at least take maybe a week to 2 weeks at the very most. And sometimes it can be done less than that. What we always tell our families, once you get the application, if you can follow the application from word to word and give us all of the documentation and send it back together, it does not take us but a day or two to actually process it and get you approved. Usually the time frame, it takes longer because we have to kind of catch and grab what we actually need. But the things that Jared explained that we do use to qualify you, we have to have that in place before we can process the application. So I always tell families, it's basically how long it takes you to get the information to us. But once we get the information in hand, the turnaround is very, very quick.
Yep, Tasha's absolutely right. The biggest holdup is getting applications back that are incomplete or providing the incorrect information or not enough information. So it's really making sure that, again, you follow all of the list that includes all the documents that we need, and then returning back to us in full versus piecemeal, a document here, a document there. If we get everything back in full, as Tasha said, we can turn that around pretty quick and get you going with services.
Also, to let you know, the people that's providing services, like I said, our providers, we do an extensive background check on them. Everyone, now that does go through the state. We do have a new process that happened, that started this new fiscal year, where DBHDD actually has to approve that person through a background fingerprint. But they also have to have first aid CPR. We do have a NCI, which is the non-crisis intervention training. They do have to have a DMV report. And we do our own in-house orientation that Jared and I also run. Since COVID has been in, we actually do it virtual. So we do an orientation. They do have to have a TB test, and after they get approved, they have to go through 16 hours per year online reliance training as well. So all of our providers are educated and are experienced trained providers, and they can come into your home, and also you can take your individual to their homes. If they are out of home provider, then we also do inspections. Jared is the person that usually goes out. We go by the DBHDD checklist, and we do follow that, where we actually have to get that, they have to get their house inspected, and they have to be approved to be an out-of-home respite provider. Since COVID is, we're in the pandemic, the state has approved for family members to also be a temporary provider. But you have to, for a family member to be a provider, they have to be a non-stakeholder. They cannot be directly in-house with the individual. So it can't be mom and dad that lives in a home with the individual that's going to be their caregiver that we pay them. It can be an aunt, it could be an uncle, it could be a brother, sister, cousin, best friend. It could be any of those people that know the individual, but they have to live outside of the home. And if they want to be a single family provider, which is meaning that they want to provide services just for your child, then they have to go through the same process as any other provider, but some of the things that's on the list that a regular provider will have to provide services, they may not have to. In instances like they may not drive. And if the parent is okay with them not driving, they're just going to be at the person's home, then we can kind of eliminate the DMV report or the car insurance or those type of things. But we are allowing family members to be a caregiver, to be a provider to the individuals at this time. I have no idea when DBHD would say, no more, they can't do that. But I do know this fiscal year that it is able to do that. Fortunately for us, respite was one of the services that funds was not cut. We are basically thriving through the pandemic. We have over 80 something providers that we work with on a daily basis, and Respite has been doing really, really well. We have not had any individual families that have complained since the pandemic. We do not require a family or a provider to give us a COVID test, but once the individual family contacts the provider and speaks with them, they can request a COVID test. And that's between the caregiver and the provider, whether or not they're wanting to exchange that. Because just as we want our providers to be safe and healthy, we also want to make sure that our providers are safe and healthy when they go into a home as well. Jared, are we missing anything?
You touched on pretty much everything. You mentioned Haven House.
Yes, Haven House is one of our group homes that's in Conyers. It's basically a group home setting where we usually provide services for 4 individuals at a time. Right now during COVID, we're basically doing 3 individuals with 2 staff, and it's only on weekends. But to qualify for Haven House, you have to basically come and do a tour out at the Haven House, and we do an assessment on site with the individual to see if they qualify for Haven House. Haven House is a fast-pacing group home type setting where they do a lot of community-based activities. But because of COVID, all of our stuff is in-house right now. So all of our individuals are required to wear masks at all times. Staff are required to take our masks. They are required to get a COVID test, and they also have to get their temperature checked when they come to the group home. But that is another entity of respite that In-Community provides. As Claire had stated before, we do provide services, respite services to Spectrum, social skills, all of those community services, and you can use your respite hours for those camps. We don't normally call it camp with respite, but because if they're providing respite in a group setting, we do provide those hours for those individuals. And I'm assuming from Claire, Mary, you guys have not had any issues with anything with respite with us.
No, we're grateful. Group respite is what we would call it. We call it now our respite day camp, so that it's
Okay.
respite and camp. And it's for short amounts of time, like the weekend, or so our weekend camps would qualify. Our 3-day camps during holidays, which are for respite for the families. The thing it doesn't cover would be things like our social skills programs that are, to us, they're respite for the family, but to you all, it's like technology club or drama club. Those things you can't use respite funding for. And then our week-long camps, correct? Can't use respite.
You can use it for the week-long camps. You can use it for the week-long camps. Like I said,
Day camp only?
Excuse me?
Day camp only, not overnight?
Jared, what did we come up with that? What did we say about?
I believe it was just day camp only.
Day camp only. But
Yeah,
haven't we did your week-long camp, your overnight camp before?
Prior years, but this
I don't think I was here with that.
Okay.
Maybe.
right, that was before. But the last word we had was we couldn't do it for. But our family camp that we do Labor Day weekend, we were able to use it for that. So you should always check with us. Some people may not know. Oh, and Haven House, what ages? Is that for 3 and up or a certain age?
Well, at Haven House is 7 and up.
7 and up.
We usually start around 7, just because, like I said, it's basically a lot of community access. So it's basically geared towards the older kids, but we have had siblings come where the younger one may be 7 or 8, and we will take them. But the majority of our age groups usually around about 11, 12 and up. But the good thing about Haven House, I have been fortunate enough to group them by age and by gender. We do not mix girls and boys together. And we try to get them as close as age as possible. So when you see on our site, it says younger kids, that's anywhere, we usually say 17 and younger. So they may be 16 or 17, but their intellectual is about 10. We can group those with the younger kids, but we do not group adults with children at all.
So the type of situation where someone would use that setting for respite, would it be like if you had a relative that passed away and you needed to travel out of town for a funeral and you needed somewhere for your child to be, or if you needed to take a few days and go on a vacation with your spouse, you could leave your child. Maybe how far ahead do you have to reserve your spot for Haven House? Because I'm sure it's popular. There are not a lot of places that you can leave a child overnight.
Good question. Haven House is usually booked 4 months in advance. We do a calendar every 4 months. So it normally comes out from January, April, and then another one comes out in August. Right now we are booked until December. So the next schedule will come out December 1st, and that will go from January to April. So it's usually booked up pretty fast, but with COVID, Haven House was shut down for week-long respite, because we used to do respite Monday through Friday, where they come on Monday, stay till Friday, or they may come from Friday and stay to Sunday. So because of COVID, our board of directors felt that the need was more on weekends than it was during the week. So now we're open every weekend except for Thanksgiving, and I think we're closed again maybe Easter or something like that. But it's a nice place to go, and it does not always have to be as an emergency situation, or because mom, dad wants to go out of town. Mom and dad may just need a break for the weekend and want to have date night Saturday, and they decide that they want to bring their individual for the weekend. We can customize services with Haven House, so you may just want to do Saturday. You may not want your child to stay for the whole weekend, and that's okay. You can also schedule it like that. Sunday morning service, you may want to go to church, and Junior may not like to sit in church for 3 or 4 hours. You can utilize respite Haven House for just that day. And then, like I said, if Haven House is not available, we do have providers that can do the same exact services in their home. They don't always have to come to your home. And we have providers that have kept individuals. We've had families that have taken vacations out of the country, and they have left their individual with one of our respite providers for a week, 2 weeks. It just depends on how well you're comfortable with that services.
Thank you. You did a good job letting people know kind of situations like that. I don't know that a lot of people are aware there is an environment like that. Also, that you can have a respite worker come stay in your home overnight for a weekend. When I first started using respite, I didn't even know what that word meant. I didn't know what respite was. But once I experienced it and tried it out, I was nervous to let anybody come. My son had aggressive behavior. He was nonverbal. I'm like, I would never let a stranger, come take care of him. I wouldn't take him to a group respite or someone's home because he might destroy it or hurt someone. And so he was 5 when I finally signed up for respite services, and I found a teacher that knew him, that was willing to work with him, and that was who I used. So I kind of recruited my own person. But I tell people, if you have someone who's already helping you, get them to come sign up to be an independent contractor with in community, and then we would have people sign up to work with Blake and have them put on the application to work with Blake D's only. And then if they got where they love doing respite and they wanted to stay in community, hey, I'd like to do this for other families, they were welcome to do that. But it helped us find people we could depend on a regular basis. Like I needed someone maybe a couple days after school to come to my home, and I felt better having them in my home, and that way I could get comfortable with them. But then when we got to the point where we wanted to go overnight somewhere, I felt like they knew my home and knew him well enough that I trusted them then to stay in my home overnight. Some people feel more comfortable bringing their child to a group respite where there's more eyes, more people, and it's not one-on-one with someone because they might not feel as comfortable. So a lot of times people will come to our Saturday respite or our program, and maybe they'll meet one of our staff who connects well with their child and find out, oh, they do respite already within community, or
Yes.
maybe they would be willing to sign up to do it. But the fact that you can use a cousin, a sibling who's maybe an adult that doesn't live in the home anymore, a relative, a friend now, that is a great benefit right now for families. During COVID, I
Yes.
feel like this is when people need respite the most. So if you're
Exactly.
struggling at home, feeling like you're not getting a break, you could have activities. You want the person to take your child out. They've gone through the DMV checks and everything, but you might want them to take them to go bowling or to do a movie or do some activity where you get the child out of the house in the community to do something too, where, you know, if you're at home and you have a caregiver there and you're trying to do things at home, you're kind of still wanting to watch your child or keep an eye on them. Sometimes you need to be the one to get the break. Maybe you just need to go to the grocery store or go to the library and sit and read a book.
Or you may want to go in your bedroom and take a nap
There you go.
without being disturbed. So we do provide all of that. And also I wanted to mention that we did not mention, we do provide services with families that have siblings. If you have two individuals with a disability, you can't take them to a provider's home, but a provider can come to your home and they can do respite with both of your individuals. Now, they will not be able to take them out into the community by themselves, but they can come into the home and they can provide respite in the home with both of the individuals. Now, both of the individuals have to be signed up within community, and they both have to have a DD diagnosis. So it can't be where Johnny has the disability and Susie doesn't, and you just want to leave Susie with the caregiver. We can't do that, but we can provide services to siblings that have a diagnosis. If you do have multiple children with the diagnosis and you want respite services and you want them to go out into the community, we can provide more than one respite provider at the same time. Where they can actually group up together. They can take both individuals to the movies or, like you say, bowling, so they can actually go out together, but we would have to just use two providers, and we can provide that services.
The other thing I wanted you to explain to them is about the hourly rate, because if you use respite vouchers, you request a voucher for your respite sit. It might be for our Saturday respite day camp, and the cost of our camp is $60 a day, but if your rate is $9 an hour, then it may only pay $54. So you may owe a small amount. And it depends on the fee for the
fee for services, the level of care. So what that means is we actually, that's when Jared was talking about the assessment. When you first come into care, we used to go out to the family's home and do a face-to-face assessment. But because of COVID and all of this, we kind of shied away from that. So Jared came up with the system where he basically does it over the phone. And so we always tell families, we rather for you to give us too much information than not enough information, because we can actually assess them from what you tell us. So if you tell us that Johnny is self-sufficient and he can do everything for himself, he can stay by himself for a couple of hours, and you just need a break here and there, your level of service, your level of care may be a level 1 or a level 2. And that depends on the rate that you get paid. So most of the time we don't usually do a level 1, which is at $8 an hour, because most of our individuals have to have some type of services, some type of assistance. So with that being said, most of our individuals that come into care is from a level 2 or a level 3. A level 2 individual is a $9 an hour individual. And like I said, they basically can do for themselves for the most part. They just need some assistance, or they may just need someone to be there to help them with light duty work or light chores or homework or whatever. Whereas when you start getting to a level 3, which pays a little bit more, and that's usually around between $10 and $12, those are mostly for individuals that has behaviors. And sometimes they may be more intensive behaviors, or it may get a little bit where they need more care, then the rate kind of goes up to 11 or 12. It just depends on the assessment. And Jared, you want to chime in and kind of tell what you look for when you do your assessments and how we rate them?
Well, the assessment is just basically capturing the ADL needs and the IADL needs. So bathing, dressing, toileting, feeding, mobility, transferring, Meal prep. Are they taking medications? What's the medication management? It captures information regarding behaviors, communication, the style of communication that's used. It captures information regarding, will there be any aggressive behaviors towards others? Are there aggressive behaviors, self-injurious behaviors that they'll exhibit? So it gives a complete picture so that we have an idea of what the ADL needs are and the IADL needs are, and what the provider may have to bring to the table in terms of skills and abilities to provide that care and supervision to this particular individual. We also capture all diagnoses, not only the intellectual and developmental, but if there are some physical diagnoses that might be present, we want to get the full picture so the provider has a full and complete idea of who they're serving, who they're caring for, so that we match you and match the provider with the right participant, and we match the participant with the appropriate provider. We try to get a good fit in terms of care needs and the skill set that the provider has. So that's the purpose.
I have one more thing about that I wanted to say, Jared. If someone has been using respite for a number of years and their rate is still at 9, but maybe their child has become larger, requires a lot more physical strength, maybe they've become more aggressive as they got older or whatever. If they feel like their rate needs to be changed, I know they can come back to you with some documentation. So you might just tell, what do you need if you need to address a higher rate? What would justify that? And like, how would they go about letting you know and giving you the documentation needed to maybe qualify for a little higher rate?
Typically, we're looking at a change in condition, and you're right. I'm looking for documentation noting the change in condition. Is this a change in the condition that's going to be temporary? Is it going to last longer than 6 months? Just getting a synopsis of what has changed and what is the need present. Once I get that information, I hand it off to Tasha. Tasha then makes the assessment and determines whether the rate needs to increase, and if so, by how much. That makes sense.
Yeah, perfect. So you might have said this and I missed it, but people typically qualify for, is it 240 hours a year still?
This year.
Oh, go ahead, Jerry.
Go ahead, Tasha. Go right ahead.
This year, we, because our funding was not cut, and we've noticed over the last year or two, we kind of just did a synopsis of how much the families was using. We were able to increase those hours to 300 this year. We usually put a cap on it as far as them using it for the entire year. Fortunately for us this year, we've able to kind of be more lenient with that. So just say if we give you 300 hours to start off with, and you are one that utilize respite more than some others, we usually go back and reassess it around the holidays. And we usually are able to increase those families that have run out of hours, and give more hours come January. And then going into the summer, because the pandemic hit, before the summer fell in and people was not using respite at all, we were able to utilize that during the summer, this past summer. So that's why we were able to give you guys kind of leeway to say, okay, well, we can do respite camp for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever. One of the other vendors, I think Bennett's Place, was able to utilize it a lot more because the kids were out of school. And then with the digital learning, we're able to utilize it more because mom, dad is home during the day with their individual. And so by 3 o'clock, you're stir crazy. I need a break. So we're able to give them respite services where it's after school, but really not after school, because we used to didn't provide respite for after school care. That was something that you had to tap into the family support for. But because of COVID, because people are learning in a different way now, we're able to give you more hours to utilize during the week, as well as the weekend, as well as week-long camps. And then when school is out or when the class is out, we're able to give you more hours. So I don't want to just make families know, oh, it's just 300 hours and that's it. We are very flexible when it comes to that. But when we do see someone that's abusing that kind of, and have used it, because we have some families may have got 300 hours in July, and I promise you, by the end of August, they were gone. They were using respite that much. And so we have to kind of pull back when it comes to that, because we want to be able to utilize, give that where every family is able to utilize that. And believe it or not, it's been COVID, but we have had a tremendous amount of people applying for respite than we've had previous. Everybody wants to use respite right now. So
this is the time. So if you have not applied for respite, I encourage you to apply for it. If one of you, Jared or Latasha, can put in the chat box how to contact you, and get that application, because people are wanting to know, how do we apply within community for respite? That's the question coming up in the box. So the other question I see is about being, it is not income dependent. So it's not,
no, it is not
based on your income, it's based on your child's disability.
Yes.
And the actual rate of pay is typically $9 an hour, but if you have a child with higher needs, you may get up to 10, 11, 12, I think is the max, right?
12 is the max, and that's through
That
the
would
state.
be unusual for someone who really had some high needs, but it's definitely, and that 300 hours, she said, is flexible, so you might get more. You might say, I just need 4 hours a week. You wouldn't even use all your hours, or you might save some for one of the weekend camps or something like that, or for when you want to go away and have someone in your home. So if you have any further questions, they put it in the chat box, how to contact them, and you can email them to get an application. And thank y'all very much. And we really appreciate you sharing those resources. You answered a lot of questions. And if you, are y'all still taking family support applications as well?
We are.
Okay, so.
Somebody just asked, was Nicole Brickhouse still the person for family support? Yes, she is. She's still family support. Now, Kiana Buford is no longer with us, but Nicole is still there. And I think she has a new coordinator that works with her as well.
So if you have applied with another provider, Viewpoint Health or in community, and you haven't heard back, you should follow up with an email or a phone call. Like they said, it can take 60 days to get approved. So just realize
yes,
that
they have family support has to go through the state. So it's really easier to get respite hours, just because ours is in-house, and it's not based off of income. So we can pretty much move a little bit quicker when it comes to the respite part. But for anything that has to go through the state, you know, everything is a waiting period, and the state kind of is going through everything with a fine-tooth comb right now. So because all family support across the board funds were cut, you know, they're basically, you know, picking and choosing right now.
So I encourage you, if you have not applied for family support or respite, apply for both, because you can use both, and go for it. So thank you guys. Now Mary O'Connell is going to talk to you a little bit about some of the programs. She is our program manager for Spectrum, but she runs Social Skills Today and runs other programs, not just Spectrum programs. So she's going to talk a little bit about some of the ways you can use the funds with her programs, and ours in particular. Thank you, Mary.
Welcome. All right. Okay, I'm so proud of myself. I got this up. Anyways, I'm Mary O'Connell, and as Claire said, I am the director for the program activities for Spectrum, and we also have programs in Roswell and some incoming. We didn't last summer incoming because of COVID, but we do typically do a very small program up there too. So we're going to kind of talk about what we're doing right now. And again, all of our programs are a little bit different. They're much smaller than they have been in the past because of COVID. We have some very strict guidelines that we are following because of COVID. But one of the things that we are not requiring is our participants do not have to wear a mask. This is a problem for many of our children. Centrally, they can't do it. So we're making sure that they're washing their hands frequently, that, we're screening everybody before they come in to any of our programs, and to make sure that they don't have any symptoms that are even similar to COVID. All of our staff is wearing masks all the time, and we're following the disinfecting and of all surfaces and toys and that type of thing, so that we stay safe. We had summer camp this summer. Typically, we have between 60 and 75 children each week in Gwinnett. This year, we had between 20 and 25 each week. So our program was much smaller. Our groups were much smaller, and we had no instances where anyone got sick. So right now we are doing Saturday Respite Day Camp, and we're doing it month to month. This month, November and December, we put together as one registration because there were only 2 weeks each month due to the holidays. So our first session for November will be this Saturday. If you want your child to participate starting on Saturday, you need to register by tomorrow. And I forgot to put this in here, but by noon tomorrow, so that we can make sure that we have enough staff to be sure that your child is safe while they're at the program. The time is from 9:30 to 3 each Saturday. The location is at New Directions in Swanee. This is a great place. There's lots of area for the kids to play outside. They've enjoyed that. We've got the scooters, and the trampoline is out there. There's swings. So it's a great place for them to have some fun. We're looking at future dates to be January, February, March, and probably April. We'll most likely not do anything in May, as that's our really busy month to get ready for summer camp. Thanksgiving break camp. That'll be in November 23rd, 24th, and 25th. The time for that is 9:30 to 3:30. We're giving you an extra half hour. The location is at the Net at Berkmar in Lilburn. And you must register by November 19th to participate in Thanksgiving camp. Now, if you are using family support services, please register before the 15th so we can get your invoices in time, particularly if you are using In Community, as they want their invoices in by November 15th to qualify you for having used some of your funds before the end of the year. We're hoping after the first of the year to start up our technology club again. And typically our technology club lasts for 6 weeks. It does not qualify for respite, but you can use family support for it. This is for our kids who are able to follow directions, at least after 2 verbal prompts. We're trying to get them to work together in groups. Most of our kids love technology, but they're not interested in working together in a group. So that's where we get our social part of the technology, is through that working together in a group. And we've had groups in the past who have done public service announcements. They've created, they used a 3D printer to create something together as a group. So that's a great program for your kids who, are really techie, but they need that communication. They need to work within the group and be able to communicate. They don't have to know how to communicate. That's what we're trying to teach them. The dates and the locations will be announced soon. Our drama club, and typically our drama club starts in the fall and goes all the way through the spring, and we put on a production. Last year we were planning on putting on The Lion King, and then COVID hit. So we have not been able to do our production yet, but we are looking at right now doing a mini drama club. It will be about 8 weeks of group interaction. It would be in December, January, and part of February. And the performance date is going to be announced, but it will be before the 15th of February, and the location will be announced. We're working to try and get this done as quickly as possible and get that information out to you. This group is kids all the way from first grade up until we've got I think a 34-year-old that participates in this group, and they don't have to even be able to communicate. They can be dancing to the music. They can just be a part of the chorus, or they can be helping with the sets and that type of thing. But we do ask that, again, they be able to follow directions with no more than 2 verbal prompts. So, we need them to be able to participate, basically. But this is more for our higher functioning kids. And again, they can be from first grade on. Camp Journey, this is our overnight camps, and we have camp at Camp Twin Lakes in Winder, Georgia. Our kids absolutely love this. We haven't been able to have our weekends or our week long since last March, and our kids are really sad. I have a daughter who is counting the days until June comes, even though we don't know the date yet, but we are looking that we will possibly have the week long in June of 2021. Again, as soon as we have that information, we'll let you know, but we know that there will be no spring weekend at this time. Summer 2021, we have our themes ready for summer, and we will most likely start it's actually the first Monday after Memorial Day. So whatever day that falls this year. And we'll go for about 7 weeks, maybe 6. It kind of depends on how the school system sets up their calendar for 21-22 as to how many weeks we will have. One of the things about all of our programs is that our staff, our teachers and paraprofessionals, they are the main staff that work with our kids. And so we've always felt that our teachers, their primary job, and the parapros, their primary job is to work in the school system during the school year. So we've never before allowed our staff to work more than a couple of weeks per year or per summer, so that they do have that time to refresh themselves and get ready for the school year. Last year, we didn't follow that policy because we wanted the staff to be the same staff every week so that there weren't people coming and going and there wasn't as much exposure. But that's one of the reasons why I can't tell you whether it's going to be 6 or 7 weeks, because we just need to know what the calendar is going to be like for Gwinnett County. the other thing is that Roswell is going to be having Thanksgiving and winter break camps. Our location is Waller Park Gym in Roswell. This is a part of Roswell Parks and Recreations. They sponsor this group. We'll be doing Thanksgiving November 23rd through the 25th. We will also be having a winter break camp, which is December 21st and 22nd. And then the following week, the 28th, the 29th, and the 30th. That registration is on our website. You have to go to the Social Skills Today website to register for Roswell, and be sure to use the Roswell registration button. I have lots of people who will go to that and say, I can't find it. You can't find it on the Spectrum website, but you can find it on the Social Skills Today website. And that's all I have for right now.
All right, that was great. So if you can make sure everybody has the ability to unmute themselves. If anybody has a comment or a question, you can ask it. I think we've covered all the questions that were in the chat box, but you can still put one in the chat box and I'll read it if you don't want to speak. I'm happy to do that. And I think this has been really great to get all this information. We are recording this. So if you would like the recording and you missed some things.
Whoops, sorry, Claire. I muted you.
All right, I probably talked enough, hadn't I?
Sorry.
I just wanted everyone to know it would be recorded and available if you would like a copy of the recording to listen to the information again. This is one of my favorite things to share with families. The last time Anna Mackey came and spoke at our support group meeting, we had almost 20 parents in her breakout session who had never applied or didn't even know about family support. And she said to me, Claire, you need me to come every month. And I said, I tell every family I talk to on the phone, I always say, do you know about family support? Do you know about respite? Because I think it can make such a difference, not just for you and your child, but for your entire family. When I started using respite, I was nervous about it, but I didn't think about the benefits to my other children, to have my attention and time without having the one with autism along all the time. They appreciated getting my individual attention, and also for our marriage, to be able to do things with my spouse. And so a lot of times we are just the super parent, super mom who are trying to do it all and provide. We think we know our child the best and can do it best, and we can, but we have to learn to let other people do that. And it helps our child becomes more independent when they're able to enlarge their circle with people that have maybe more expectation and don't jump to help them with everything like we do. So I really encourage y'all to apply. And both of these organizations, BDI and In Community, are delightful to work with. That's what they're there for, is to help you navigate this process. And Viewpoint Health also provides some family support. They don't have as much funding. I don't know if they're taking new applications. They got a little less funding allocated this year, but you can feel free to email me. There's my email there if you have other questions we didn't answer. And I also put a little something in the chat box. If you're interested in some free studio movie grill tickets, send me an email. I've got a few. They expire in the middle of December, so they have to be used really quickly. So only ask for them if you think you could use them and if you feel like it's safe for your family to go to the movie theater. That's the one where you can go and order food and eat while you watch the movie. Did anybody have a question or a comment you wanted to say? Or we've had some positive things in the chat box. A lot of people say this has been really helpful. And I just wanted to answer the one about the diagnosis of autism. So you don't have to have a diagnosis of autism to use these services. You need to have a developmental disability or an intellectual disability. So you would need to have a psychological or an IEP or something that kind of shows that your child has some sort of disability. Individuals with Asperger's on the high end of autism is not based on IQ. So they could qualify as well. So I hope that answers the questions in the chat box. If anybody else has a question, this is your chance.
I have a question. Do the children have to be U.S. citizens?
For respite?
Or family support?
Yes.
Okay.
And we have run into some situations where they don't actually have a birth certificate. If they have a passport, we will accept that.
Okay.
Yeah, same here. They have to be U.S. citizens. Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question. Can I speak?
Yes, yes.
Okay, it's so quiet. Thank you so much for educating me about the different programs available. Because of the COVID, I'm having to like commute. I'm a resident of DeKalb County, and so grateful to hear that there's a family service, programs for me to apply with. Because of the COVID situation, the two kids, my son is the one that's has the ASD diagnosis. He's 7, and both of their schools are online, and I am also in school. So we're having to travel from DeKalb County to Coweta County on the weekdays, and on the weekend we would be at home. Is there any program in the Noonan area or a support group, Claire? Because
Yes, so there are, amazingly, you would think there'd be support groups everywhere, but there are some small support groups on that side of town. If you go to the Parent to Parent of Georgia website, they keep it, their database is the most updated one. It's P, the number 2, the letter P, GA.org. And you can look up support groups based on zip code or area. But there are a few groups. There's the Southside Support Group, which is kind of based out of Peachtree City, Fayetteville area. So that's
Okay.
the closest one. There was one in Coweta, which is Noonan. I'm not sure if it's operating right now. And I'm not really sure with COVID, how many groups are actually meeting in person or if they're doing some Zoom type meetings. But that's where I usually go to check to see what kind of support groups are out there. And there are definitely some around metro area. So that's probably the best place to check. I'll put that in the chat box too.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Any more questions or comments? This has been great. And oh my, y'all are the best presenters. I love having someone come every year to talk about respite and family support. And I'm kind of excited that this one's recorded. I think it was so thorough, and what a great audience. We had a great turnout too. So
Well, thank you for having us.
thank y'all for attending. Parent to Parent of Georgia is also another great place to go for other resources. So you might be looking for someone who does ABA therapy or someone who does adaptive swim lessons. So there are a lot of things you can find on that database. So I give that out a lot. So anyway, all right. Thank you to all, and y'all have a good month. We'll hope to see you again in December. I think the 3rd is our meeting in December. All right. Good
Great.
night.
Thank you. See you then. Good
Okay.
night.
Bye.